Hey guys, so I am playing Orphea. Now, this is actually just a replay of me playing Orphea, but I wanted to share this one as I went a build that was one that I kind of mentioned that I might try out on my video that I was talking about her abilities, and I also got to play with Beard and Murloc, which is pretty fun. So, I want to talk a little bit about this build, and I want to explain the playstyle I went with. I'm actually going to lock my screen instead of doing my camera, purely because I want to show you how much I move around with this build and show how much she can do. Now, I want to apologize in advance. This game might be a little bit strange. My computer's been acting a little weird, and I've been getting random freezing spikes about every 15 seconds. So if you see my character like stop moving for a little bit, that's probably what it is. But a lot of what I do in this build is I move around and I try to play safe, and when I see an opportunity, I use my Q, I go in, and I use my W for the extra damage. Just so you know what the Q and W are, the Q is her Shadow Waltz, that's the one that makes her move around. Her W is her high damage chomp. So you'll see me use the Q and then chomp in every once in a while. But generally, this build, we needed sustained damage and a little bit of physical damage. So what I ended up doing was I was going for a trait build, followed by mainly just the sustained damage and high mobility so I could stay alive and keep fighting them over and over and over. I had to be a battery for the Ariel, so I try to stay. I end up taking a lot of unnecessary damage while I was doing that, but in general, it was a lot of fun. So the build, level 1, I decided to go with the Ancestral Strength, meaning if they're slowed, I do more damage. My goal was to be near the Tassadar, who has kind of permanent slows on people, but if not, I follow up the stuns from Muradin, I Q in, then W out, and I do a huge burst. Otherwise, it's mainly just I need to use my E to trigger my own burst damage. As you can see, I am very mobile. I keep landing my abilities and then moving towards them and then using my other abilities, and it gets even more mobile at level 4. And the builds that I've been watching people play are variations of the Q build, so a lot of people are skipping this on point because I've been watching a couple pro players play, and they've been skipping on point, but then they've been getting all the rest of the Q talents, and that may end up being the build, but this build just felt really fun, it felt engaging, and it felt like I was constantly getting stuff done, despite the fact that not only was my computer freezing, but I had also not played her very much, making it to where it was I didn't have a lot of opportunities to really get too much done, but this build did feel like really fun, and I don't know how good it actually is. I'm just staying bot lane right now. My goal is to just keep getting as much structure damage off as possible, because by the time I rotate, they're just going to take back bottom again. So I wanted to make sure that I can kind of do more than one thing. I use my E to get vision of where they are. I use my Q to get away from them. Could have gotten in one auto attack probably safely and healed myself, but instead I just wanted to stay down here as long as possible. I should have just gotten the fountain. I didn't know how long I was going to stay in lane, so I should be just getting fountains as often as they're up. And that's one thing that I made a big mistake on this game, was not getting as many fountains. And my computer is freezing, so I don't know how that's going to look on the recording. I really need to get this fixed, but I just wanted to get all my recordings done for Orphea the first day of the PTR, so I can get them to you guys as fast as possible. So this is what I'm talking about. I Q in, I W out, and it's a very effective damage. It gets a lot of the chaos on there. I wanted to get the soak from these minions as they were dying, and then I wanted to join back in again. Use my W, Q to get in, W to get out, Q to get in. And again, just very high sustained damage. I'm pretty scary for the amount of damage that I'm doing. And I'm not really bursty or anything. Like, I'm not too overpowered. Like, I don't feel like I'm just absolutely blowing people up. But I am doing the top damage, and the other Orphea is doing the second highest damage. So we are definitely doing a lot of damage. Once again, I tried to Q in, W out, but I ended up not getting the into W range because I queued in and hit something else. But that's pretty much my main combo. It's very, very powerful. It does a lot of damage, and it gets me in a safe position. So I can get in with the chomp, get some extra damage, and then I can get out and just keep moving back around. So it's pretty strong. Grab my fountain. Again, I should have gotten it a lot earlier because I would have probably almost had it back up again. I'm just doing safe damage. I could keep getting more my Q. I think that was another thing that I lacked in this game was I wasn't using my Q as often as I should have. I also didn't use my E very much, but I tried to use it to like combo with things, but I could have just used it more often for the damage. Then the ultimate ability, I had some weird issue that was going on with the ult where it wasn't going off when I was casting it. So this game, I cast only a single ult the entire game, and it after that, like every other R that I tried to press, never actually casted. And I don't know. I think what happened is I think my PTR ult isn't on quick cast, and I think that's why it was never casting. So uh, either way, so level 7, I get insatiable. My point is I just wanted sustained damage. I just wanted to be able to deal a lot of damage. Yeah, right there was an example of where it just froze. And so I do still get out with very little health, but little stuff happens. But yeah, insatiable. So if I hit someone with my chomp, it goes down to a 2-second cooldown. The point of this build is to use my Q to get in, to chomp to get out, and keep doing that over and over and over. Or if someone dives on me, I can use chomps to keep getting out. For example, they're Urel or the Diablo. If they jump on me, I use my chomp to keep getting away from them. Level 13, Chomp's going to give me all of my chaos, meaning that I can just use my Chomp and auto attack, and it's going to be very, very scary for them. So in general, that's the major combo that I'm going to keep doing over and over and over, and you'll see that it gets pretty effective later on in the game. But even right now, I'm still doing a lot of damage. That was pretty bad, but still worked out. I don't know if my computer froze at that point. It was about every 15 seconds it was freezing. I don't know why it was doing that. But level 10, I pick up Crushing Jaws. I feel like this is going to be the main one, but when I was watching some of the pros play, they were picking Eternal Feast against people like Diablo, as Diablo would Lightning Breath, and then you just drop down the Eternal Feast right on the Lightning Breath. And it was a very effective way to not necessarily just like deal with Lightning Breath, but it's such a big AoE that while it keeps going on a Lightning Breath target, no one else can get near the Diablo because it just keeps going. So it's not just that it kills Diablo, but it's actually a huge zoning tool as well. Every other scenario, I think Crushing Jaws is just the way to go. It's a CC that you can do on your own. While it takes a long time, it's just really, really powerful. Her mana costs are pretty reasonable, but as you can see, I do start running low on mana pretty quick, and you do normally run out of mana a little bit before you run out of health just because she does have a decent amount of sustain. Once again, just to kind of give you a glimpse of the damage numbers, you can see I am doing quite a lot of sustained damage this, and it is very, very powerful. I don't have as much wave clear as I would have in the other build, the Ravenous Hunger, which I think is good on maps that you can double soak, and there's other builds that you can do, like a level 16, so you get 2 Lurking Terrors. But generally, I just like this build. You just get to move around a lot. You're really hard to deal with, and you can just move in and out of fights without needing to worry too much. And I'm sure I'll get a lot better at the different builds as well. Because there's a lot of times you see me using my W and I get way too far away from the enemies and it's hard for me to catch up. But then there's other times where you can see the enemies keep trying to kill me and I just kind of walk away or bump away from using my other abilities. And I'm still learning the range of my stuff, but yeah, she's really powerful. I mean, I'm not sure if she's OP. And she's going to be very easy to balance even if she is OP right now, purely because it's just a numbers game. She doesn't have a lot of CC. The majority of the CC that she has is a talent level 4 that makes it to where she can stack up to 50% slow, as well as her ult. Her regular E slow is pretty hard to land, and it's pretty rare that it actually is going to get a lot of value. So she should be easy to balance just because it's all numbers. They could just bump down some of the numbers, bump up a couple cooldowns. I think a lot of people have said that her base kit isn't too scary. It's that a lot of her talents are a little bit higher than some other ones should be. For example, like this level 1 talent, I felt like it was sorry, there's a fight going on. But yeah, the level 1 talent, I feel like this is just kind of weird because the Growing Nightmare, if you're going this build, you will never need to every time you're going to have that explosion, they're going to be slowed, meaning that the ancestral strength is just objectively better in every way than Growing Nightmare. So they can either buff Growing Nightmare or they can nerf ancestral strength. But I feel like Ancestral Strength, I mean, it is kind of a must pick. I'm surprised they do both of those things, non-heroic abilities as well as giving the additional chaos. I figured this is another one of those times where I think that they could split those two things up and put them on different tiers or something, because this is a really powerful talent. I've been seeing it being picked instead of this even in the Q build, and I've been seeing this picked instead of this even on the E build. And for me, the W build, it's just a must. It's the only talent on that tier. You can see again, like that's how that Diablo I just Q'd in, W'd out, Q'd in, W out, and it's very, very sustained damage. She has surprisingly good follow-up. Like if you want to just like get on someone, you're in a pretty good spot to like use your Q, get up, get enough damage off, and then use your W to get out right at the end of the fight. But you can follow up on just about anything. She's good for really like medium length fights, I guess is the best call for it. Like really long fights, she can have a little bit of mana problems. Really short fights, she doesn't actually have as much burst as a lot of other mages do. For example, like you're never going to do as much burst as a Jaina will. And I think that's where a lot of people feel like she's OP, is she does everything. But in reality, like the most burst you can get off really quick on a single target is like maybe 3,000 damage at 16, but Jaina can pop Icy Veins and do something like 8,000 or 9,000 damage in like the same amount of time. So her short fights is a little bit weaker than most, but her mid-range fights and long fights she's pretty good at, but her mid-range fights tend to be the better area. So I did get the Abyssal Symbiosis, makes it to where when I bite someone, I get all of my chaos, all 3 stacks of my chaos. There are other talents that you can get, but in this particular build, because I'm going to have such a low cooldown of my W, I'm going to want to keep doing that instead. So I can auto attack, and then I can just go right back in and keep doing the Ws. And keep getting the extra chaos damage. This was all bad. I walked up, missed my W, and just kind of wasted everything. Again, different ranges that I'm going to need to learn, practice. But I mean, even just this, look at all this sustained damage. Just Q, W, Q. It's just crazy. I should be using my ult right here, and I think I tried to a couple times, but it just didn't end up working. Here I like mashed my ult ability, trying to get him in like this little cluster. There we go. There's the only ult you're ever going to see this game. And another missed W. Overall, I still think that she's pretty high skill cap. Knowing when to go in, when to get out, knowing which abilities you should be using for sustained damage so you don't end up moving in a way that you don't want to go is very, very important. And sticking with people is also something that's pretty surprising. She's really good at sticking with people. Knowing when to use your abilities on waves is going to be also something that's really important, as your abilities get on long cooldowns if they don't hit something. For example, your W is a 10-second cooldown. Unless you hit someone, then it goes down to 2 seconds with this talent. So wasting that can always be pretty risky. This is really cool, just being able to like fight, use my W to get closer to where the enemies are going to run. So the W can be used like offensively, defensively, and kind of just for moving around the fight, because you actually move back not in the direction where the enemy is, but in the direction opposite to where your W is. So say you aim it kind of weird, you can move around differently if you wanted to. So say you kind of get in a weird angle with someone, you can like W yourself into an area where you might need to be. I just back here, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I didn't want to, I want to make sure that we can actually like join our team. Full health, full mana. Again, I don't know why I used W there. So I definitely still have a lot of practice on her. But she actually does seem like a hero that I'm probably going to be picking up and playing, because generally she is really fun. She's just constantly moving around. her healing is pretty interesting, but you kind of need to commit to the healing. Like, you have to be in the fight to get your healing. It's not something like Urel, who you can just kind of back up, heal with your Q, and you're all good. She's someone that you really need to be willing to stay in the fight and just consistently use your abilities well. And there's a lot of times where I was noticing some of the other Orpheas, they were using all of their abilities on a target, and then they weren't auto-attacking to get the chaos damage, which means that they also weren't getting any healing. So being able to actively do that is also very important. So to explain a little bit of what I did this time was I went with Bonds of Anguish for this build because, again, it's very high sustained damage. Dead Magic is probably what I should have gone or could have gone, but they didn't have a lot of armor that I was worried about. Urel's jump gives a little bit of armor, but generally I wasn't too worried about that. But I think I should have gone this just because the build gives a lot of chaos between my level 1, my level 7 and my 13. I pretty much always have 2 to 3 stacks of chaos on me. So Dead Magic might have been better. Lurking Terror just doesn't really work with this build. But I like Shadow or Bond of Anguish, 3% of their max health, and they had 2 high health targets with the Urel and the Diablo, so you can definitely see I really wanted those. This particular fight, they get a really, really good ult, so if I remember right, it might be the wrong fight. But again, I'm just kind of doing the same thing. W's out, auto attack, Q in. And you can just see the sustained damage that I'm doing is just very light. I'm not trying too hard to aggress and really try to blow someone up. I'm just keeping my damage up at a very consistent pace. Now we can see Phoenix almost catching up to me after that great ult where he did, like, pretty much wiped our entire team. But even with that, I'm still so much higher than anyone else on either of the teams. Just like 20,000 from the 3rd place, 30,000 from the 4th place. It's just crazy. I'm trying not to get a fountain yet because I can heal myself a lot with chaos, but it's a little risky. So you can see I'm a little cautious of stepping forward and auto-attacking. But if I do, I can gain a lot of health back. So I auto-attack him, I Q in, I W out. But he stutter steps a little bit. With all of her abilities being delayed, I also think that her skill cap is going to be interesting. Sorry, the skill cap of everyone you're playing against. Because people can easily just walk around you or move around you, so you don't need to actually worry about that. And I think that's where this is going to be interesting to see. Right now she seems really strong, but as people get better at playing against her, she may end up getting a lot weaker. It reminds me of Deckard. Yeah, sorry, it reminds me of Deckard, where when he first came out, all of his E talents were really, really powerful, but then people got a lot better at dodging those talents. Oh, so that right there, let me back up just a tad. So I wanted to show you how you can use W to reposition in fights to get in a better position. So we're fighting this, and again, I'm just getting very high sustained damage. I'm not really worrying about too much. And then I use my first W to go back. I deal some damage. Now watch this for a second. So the Diablo moves over this way. The Malfurion's over this way, and I'm chomping in this direction. But there's no enemy heroes this way. But I do hit the Malfurion with my chomp, despite the fact that I'm chomping in this direction. Let me increase the cursor size for a second, so you can kind of see that. So I'm chomping like right here. And so I'm going to hit him with just the edge of the chomp, but all of it's actually just hitting right over here. And watch where I move. I move in that direction. So where you chomp is where you're going to always go the opposite direction than your chomp, no matter where the enemies are in that area. So you can reposition by hitting people on the side of it. Now, my goal here was to chomp and move over here, and then use my Q right here, kill these two, and my auto attack to kill him. But unfortunately, I hit one of those freezes, and I don't think I did anything. Yeah. So to give you kind of an idea of how frustrating that was, but I'm still killing it. Even with these freezes, even with the me never using my ult, I mean, even with me not playing this hero very much, I am still doing so much damage. It's not even funny. And again, like, to me, she reminds me of, like, a lot of the different mages she reminds me of, but just like the sustained damage, it kind of reminds me of Gul'dan, where you're just constantly getting damage off, and it's just very consistent damage. Now, she has more mobility than Gul'dan, but she's also has to be so much closer to fight people, so she needs that mobility. So we'll have to see when her win rates start getting rolling out. I think that she will get tuned down just a little bit, but I really don't think she's OP. And watch, people are gonna link me the her win rates after this patch, and it's gonna be like 75%. You're gonna be like, but Paradox, her win rates are 75%. Yeah, no, I could definitely see her being strong, but I don't know. I think she's probably gonna sit around maybe 55%, and they tune her down a little bit, and she'll be sitting around maybe 50. I think this might be a hero I might main for a little while, just because there are a lot of builds. Like, I think that's one of the things that I like is so far it seems like there are a lot of builds that you can use if you really just want like to blow up one tank, going like Q builds. If you want to stack indefinitely, or you want a solo lane, going like Ravenous Hunger, so you can just build up your stats. I think all of those would be really, really cool. And then the even more dumb decision for me is I end up upgrading my ult even though I can't cast it. And there we go. That is Orphea on Braxis Holdout. High sustained damage dealer. Very, very high sustained damage. A lot of self-healing. A little bit like a bruiser that can go in lane. I think that she might be able to go solo lane, but I don't think that's going to be her main role. And she is really, really fun to play. I highly recommend people pick her up if you don't already have her, because she is just very, very entertaining. Very fun to play, very interesting, moves around a lot, and has a lot of different play styles too. I like this play style of like in and out, in and out. Reminds me of kind of like Darkest Dungeon, like a movement composition in Darkest Dungeon. But yeah, generally she's a lot of fun. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about Orphea now that you've seen the talents, now that you've seen the builds, and now that you've seen some gameplay with her in the build that I think it's fun. I don't think it's the main build. I've been watching the pros go a different build, but I do think this is definitely a fun build, and I think it's viable, at least for Hero League. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Orphea in the comments below. Keep it pretty civil, but I'm really interested in what you guys think. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and feel free to check out my other videos.